SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jahu Jeffkidos, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Edgekis. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio for this beautiful Okmulgee day today. Hope you're enjoying the weather as much as we are, before it changes again like Oklahoma usually does. We got a couple things we'll be sharing with you today. We're going to talk to a staff member from the Youth Services Division about some events they've got coming up and the kind of things they've been working on throughout the year. And in the second portion of our program, we're going to be talking about listening to a piece that our good friend Jared Moore did from Mvskoke Vision, a piece about Decatur, Georgia, I believe. We've got people taking down monuments that were considered offensive. So we'll be talking to them or listening to that piece in the second half of our program. But first of all, we'd like to welcome Karen McGurk. She's the Program Assistant for Youth Services. Good morning, Karen. Thank you for coming in.
All right. The first thing I want to talk about is the donation drive that we are hosting for our Mvskoke in Hombada, which means the community's food. Our Mvskoke Nation Youth Council is setting up food pantries at the Taylor Drive and Crutchmer housing facilities, and right now we are taking donations of non-perishable food items to be able to fill up those pantries. Some examples of items that are needed are dry rice, dry beans, dry pasta, canned fruit, canned vegetables, canned meat, juice boxes, and of course bottled water. And we're actually hosting a competition between the Mvskoke Nation departments, and the department with the most donations will win a Keurig for their office.
A good time for staff members to pull together.
Yes.
Let me ask you to do something for me first. We generally like to let our listeners know who's with us and what they do. So maybe you could take a couple of minutes to tell us about youth services and the role they play for the Mvskoke Nation.
So the main mission of the youth services program is to connect our youth to community, culture, and resources. Resources is probably the main portion of our program, just referring everyone out. And if anyone ever needs any help or assistance, they can always contact our office and we can direct them wherever they need to go. But we always focus on volunteering with the community and connecting to our culture, doing our cultural classes. Our program actually developed Humgin cards, which is Uno in Mvskoke Creek, and we sell creation storybooks and things like that. But mainly just being a part of the community and being a support there.
Giving these young people something to do.
Yes.
Something they can learn about their own culture. And give something back to the community.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a pretty big challenge there. Now, you've got this donation drive going on now, then I guess you guys are doing spring celebration too?
Yes, we hosted yesterday and the day before we hosted our spring celebration drive-through events, partnering with the TCYC program, and they were held at the different community centers within the jurisdiction, and we passed out kits, and then we actually have live events going on this week that go with the kits and that everyone can tune in. And so today at 11 we are doing a presentation about nutrition, and then at 2 p.m. we're doing a traditional storytelling, and that will be hosted by our staff member Samantha Kuhn. Tomorrow we'll be doing hymn singing and a short Mvskoke language class, and then on Friday we'll be doing a language Kahoot and then a suicide prevention presentation, and you can register for that at mvskokeyouth.com/spring celebration, or tune into our Facebook page at Mvskoke Nation Youth Services.
The list of projects you all are working on is pretty amazing there. A lot of things to reinforce culture, and I think it sounds like a self-esteem of the young people.
Yes, just overall wellness, yes.
And I like to kind of get the feeling behind why people do things like this. Now, just asking you for your own personal feelings, why is it so important that these kinds of programs take place?
Yes, well, I still am a youth myself. I am 20 years old. I've been fortunate.
That's a youth. Yeah.
Yes, I've been fortunate enough to become a full-time staff with youth services, but I actually served on our youth council for 6 years, continuing on to the present. But just in my personal experience, having my own struggles and then going out to volunteer with the community and seeing everyone else's struggles, it kind of makes you think that, or it helps you see that you can relate to them, and then being there to help somebody, it makes you feel better as well, and then kind of trains you to be able to work out your own issues. And so for me, I just love our Mvskoke culture and our Mvskoke community, and just we are, as Mvskoke people, we don't base our wealth on monetary items or material items. Our wealth comes through relationships and being there for each other. And so I think that's just a huge part of not only my own path, but just youth services as well.
Right, but I personally wouldn't mind a few more materials.
Oh.
Like a bank account that'll take me through retirement. Now, we have a lot of wonderful things going on there. And why do you think it's so important to the Mvskoke Nation that the young people get this sort of grounding, this sort of foundation?
Yes, well, our young people are the future of tomorrow. And just with the pandemic and everything, our community has had to be so separated. And I feel like our youth, especially during this time, are getting lost. And I think coming together and giving them projects that can help people and just kind of keep them occupied, it kind of sets them on the straight path and helps them decide where they want to go tomorrow. Because obviously as young people, it's hard to know what we want to do for the rest of our life, and then just kind of have a path set out for us. And so I think this is a good way for youth to be able to find themselves. And then, of course, in our rural communities, there's not much for our youth to do at all, but oftentimes get into trouble. And so this is just a way our youth council strives to get them out of that and set them on the right path.
Let me ask you an odd question. I kind of like to throw these in. Now, we have watched probably one of the most successful television programs about our people that's ever been made, Reservation Dogs.
Yes.
And it portrays the lives of 4 young people in a rural community. Now, how accurate do you think that is, and do you think our own young people are facing many of the same things?
Yes, I thought it was extremely accurate, and I know that was just a way for youth to feel truly represented and, feel heard by seeing, other youth on TV go through the same issues that they're facing. And I know that, suicide and talking about suicide was a big part of Reservation Dogs, and that is so true within our community. I mean, that is one of the most heartbreaking things is whenever you hear that a youth, has decided to leave this world that way. Mm-hmm. And so, the main thing about youth is just being there for them and then just showing support. Because, just like in the show, you could have close friends and everything and then still, decide to leave this world that way. And so it really is a real issue that our youth face.
Right. It's that issue has touched the lives of some of the people I work with, and of course, folks and this kind of thing. Now, here comes my question on the other side of the coin variety. That program portrayed a lot of things that were just side-splittingly funny. You just try and appreciate the genius of the writers of putting this thing together. Things like covering their eyes when they see an owl, and other things like that. And then, of course, there's trying to deal with their own futures. Now, does that particular segment of the show portray some of the things that you're aware of with our own people, young people here? The fun part?
Oh, yes. I think as Mvskoke people, we are some of the funniest people out there. And I think oftentimes whenever we find ourselves in sticky situations, our humor and things is, how we're able to cope with it and get out of it. And I think it was really good to see all of our small kind of inside jokes that, we could say at Walmart and people wouldn't understand, but they're represented on TV. And so, yes, I think it was hilarious. And, it just truly felt like we were being represented, not only in our issues, but also just in our social lives.
And it was done by a creek, too.
Yes.
Sterling
yes.
Harjo, 2,000 of those, Sterling. Excuse me. As you work with these young people, how many, do you have a feel for how many young people are involved with what you do? And is that a significant percentage of our young people across the nation?
I believe that, we don't have as much representation for all of our counties and all of our jurisdictions. And, our membership guidelines, we don't have anything that states that you can't live out of the boundaries or anything like that. You just have to be able to attend the meetings. We did lose quite a few members, just within the struggle of the pandemic, and so our membership has almost cut in half. We have almost about 20 active members right now, but we are needing more. And so our Mvskoke Nation Youth Council is for Mvskoke youth ages 12 to 24, and you have to attend one meeting. We have monthly meetings and then apply. Our meetings are usually the second Saturday of each month at 10 a.m., and they've been fluctuating between in-person and virtual. But if you would like to learn more about how to get your youth involved with our youth council, you can call 918-549-2557 or visit our website, mvskokeyouth.com.
Now, let me back up just a touch here. Now, you mentioned the effect that COVID had on your young people. Did you actually lose any? I mean, did you have members that passed on because of this virus?
We were fortunate enough that none of our young people had passed, but we had multiple who had lost grandmothers, grandfathers, parents, and we still have a few youth now who are unable to be active in our program because they are having to be home and they're having to be caretakers and, day nurses, night nurses, all before graduating high school. And so not only was it the fear of catching the virus, but even the after effects of the pandemic are holding our youth back to this day.
Do they understand what we're facing here? I mean, we've heard epidemic and now pandemic, and that it may be around for a long, long time, sort of like the annual disease, so to speak, like the flu. So do these people, young people, kind of know what's going on and aware of it?
I feel like at the beginning, maybe none of us truly understood the seriousness of it. Yeah. But I definitely think as the couple years have gone on, that yes, they've come to the understanding that this has truly, put a halt to everything. I personally don't even know how far, it's going to continue on in the future or what's to come. And so, but I know that our youth are kind of on their toes and they are aware and they should be very proud of themselves because I know that our youth are, being responsible and taking action. And so, yes.
The mission statement you shared talked about preservation of culture and language and skills. The members that you have, do they take to it well? Do they understand what they're learning and preserving and the importance of doing this?
Yes, I think so. A lot of times kids can, joke around and not take things serious, but whenever it comes to conversations about our culture, they're at the table, they're listening, they're putting their input in, and they are open to learning anything about our culture. A lot of our youth council members, felt disconnected from the culture, and just weren't able to participate in it in their daily modern lives. And so our program is an outlet for them to be able to learn and be together. And it's always good to learn something with people who are also learning. And so that works really well for our youth.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, that last statement you made. I mean, during the period I had a chance to take some language classes, and I was sitting in a classroom with other students who were pretty much in the same boat I was. You know,
Yes.
you're aware of your culture, but you may not have grown up in it. It's kind of hard to do in an urban setting. And then realizing how rich and how much you can learn is.
Yes.
You get on like learning the word for wild onions or fry bread, you know.
Yes.
Those are important things in life. And so, is it being absorbed by these young people? Do they realize the importance of what they're doing and learning and showing the world?
Yes, we do see, tons of growth in our youth whenever it comes to cultural activities. And then a big portion of our program is after they learn the cultural activities, they're actually able to go out and teach other youth. And so, I mean, that's just ingraining it more in them and helping them absorb it more, is that they're able to teach it to other youth and actually master it.
Mm-hmm. That is such an important part. I mean, an old guy like me can maybe lecture them and they're trying to stay awake while they're listening. But hear it from their peers, from their cousins, their buddies.
Yes.
It makes a world of difference. What do you feel are the challenges then that you're trying to overcome? What the obstacles in life for these young people?
So a lot of our young people struggle with mental health. We actually held a meeting and kind of asked them what do they feel is the biggest issue in their communities, and mental health was the biggest one by far, and just feeling healthy all around. And so that's a huge challenge that we're trying to combat. And then within our program and within our youth council, a big challenge is getting more members and getting youth back into the public and back into, a schedule and a routine after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there a particular method that works well? I mean, you've got so many things competing for their attention, music and culture and dance and,
Yes.
hanging out with their buddies and for guys, it was fast cars and looking at pretty girls. And for the girls, it was just the opposite. Are you able to compete with that kind of thing?
Yes, I know that we can't be there. We can be a support in their daily lives, but we can't do activities in their daily lives. But I think the activities that we do are so meaningful to them that they are able to set time aside for that. And then we are such a big support whenever it comes to schooling, and then finding out what you're going to do after school, whether it be higher education, trade school, and then we even support our youth on into parenthood and everything. And so not only are we able to get their attention, at the beginning whenever they're young, but even as they turn into adults and grow out of our program, we're always somewhere that they can come back to.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned a topic there that's really critically important. You mentioned them becoming parents. And a lot of times that's without planning or
Yes.
intent. It's like,
Yes.
we made a mistake and now we're having to live with it. So is there some way you can offer some support to these young people who are in that position now and then facing these huge changes in their lives?
Yes, we offer our parenting classes about 2 or 3 times a year, and they're able to do that. And then, we're able to go in depth and kind of do one-on-one parent coaching with that, and just kind of what to expect whenever the baby comes. And then we do hold our Istagy Fest, which is our community baby shower, and they are able to sign up and get things to prepare them for parenthood, like car seats, strollers, and then just a lot of information on other places that they can get help within the nation and then also from the state. And then we do try to do pregnancy prevention, especially teen pregnancy prevention, and try to be proactive in that area, and just inform youth on where they can get sexual health resources. In our office, we also offer condoms and female condoms and all kinds of sexual health resources that youth are welcome to come by and just take as they please.
Well, I'm glad you offered all that information, because that was my next question is, like, do you deal with information that might prevent this kind of unplanned change in their lives, and how far does it go? And when I was a kid growing up and, people talked about this, it was like a forbidden topic.
Yes.
People really got upset if this ever touched the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thinking has changed now, where people understand that, just the lectures and sermons ain't going to get it.
Yes.
You're going to have to get practical about this sort of thing. And have you had community support for when you get into issues and topics like that?
I feel like within the Mvskoke Nation, within our small community, yes, I feel like the towns, we could have a little bit more support and a little bit more relation with just the towns in general. But I feel like in Mvskoke Nation, we are very supported. We have relationships with majority of the departments, and we're able to communicate with them, and they're always willing to help partner to benefit our youth.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the top of the show, you mentioned a donation drive, so let's take a look at that and see what kind of things you're asking for community support.
Yes, so we're asking for non-perishable food items for food pantries set up at Taylor Drive and Kretschmer housing facilities, and those are our local Indian housing, and they are based off of income. And the deadline to donate is March 25th. If you would like to donate items, our office is located at 700 North Mission here in Okmulgee, right behind OSUIT. And again, some items that are needed are dry rice, dry beans, pasta, canned vegetables, canned fruit, canned meat, juice boxes, and bottled water. The food pantries will be set up outside, so just anything that would survive the weather.
Which I guess excludes home-prepared items, like, somebody wanted to donate venison or something like that. Are you able to accept it?
Yes, we are. Some other items that I've seen online whenever researching the community food pantries is like toothbrushes, toothpaste, laundry detergent, basic hygiene items. And then our office also, we donate hygiene kits for the homeless, and then period packs for those who are going through their cycle. And so we are also going to be putting our period packs and hygiene kits in the pantries as well.
Are there shining examples of success, let's call it, among your membership? Young people who you think have turned around their thinking and are on a successful path? I don't know if you want to name names, but are there, some young folks who come to mind?
Yes, I'm not sure if I can share their names.
No, let's not.
Yeah, but for me, I know that whenever I first joined Youth Council, I was really struggling in school. I was 14 years old and I was struggling at school. I was, getting into substance abuse, just really not on the straight and narrow path. And then whenever I found Youth Council, I was able to see youth that were striving and that were making good choices, and it kind of inspired me just to see my peers doing that. But also just having the support of the youth services staff, I realized that life is not worth it to waste it. And so I think, yes, for me, I think my growth within myself has been able to, because I've been able to share my story with other youth as well, and so, yes.
Well, that's, I think, really making the difference in it. It's a personal item you can share like that. It's like you've been through this situation where young folks have gotten lost, or lost their path or direction, or through various addictions of,
Yes.
almost blown it, so to speak. Now, if someone was interested in becoming a member or donating or finding out the kind of activities that you do, how do they get in touch with you?
So you can contact our office at 918-549-2557, or visit our Facebook page at Mvskoke Nation Youth Services, and then we also have a website, mvskokeyouth.com, and we keep everything updated every single day, and there is always someone to answer the phone, but we are always, and then also within the employment of Mvskoke Nation, we make sure to send out everything that we are doing in the email blast and things like that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we wish you the most success in your program. It's such an important part of our future. I used to tease people who made speeches and always said, the future generation. Oh, yeah, okay. But this one's really making a difference. It's reaching people. Well, Karen, thank you so much again. Keep us posted on your activities. Much success with your drive here. And we hope that you can keep making a difference in the lives of our young people.
All right, Mado, Gary.
All right, we're going to take a short pause here, and we'll be back, and we'll be listening to some of the attempts of our brothers and sisters in the Southlands to take out another piece of racial discrimination, let's call it, and that's being friendly. Okay, stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio, here on 106.3 The Brew.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Thank you for that. Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew. Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkidos, just in case you forgot who I was. The folks in the South are still dealing with many symbols of the racism that's been unfortunately a part of the American history. And in the recent decade, there's been a lot of movement toward eliminating those symbols and changing the thinking of many people around our nation. And Jared Moore, who is our producer of the TV series, Mvskoke Vision, got a chance to talk with some of these people from Decatur, and this is what he had to share.
Okay, welcome back to Livewire. My name is Jared Moore with Mvskoke Media, and I'm being joined today in the studio by Paul McLennan and Fanta High with the Decolonized Decatur Committee of the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights out of Decatur, Georgia. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Thank you for having us, Jared.
Thank you, Jared. And you guys are on the program because you are looking for an indigenous artist to do a piece to replace a Confederate monument that was taken down. Could you guys tell me the story of the takedown of the monument, and then we'll get into the artist requirements and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the work for the takedown of it was the Lost Cause Confederate Monument was a 30-foot obelisk statue that uplifted Confederate soldiers and the war that was fought to keep my ancestors enslaved, not about states' rights. And so the push for the removal of that monument was in 2017, and it involved Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights and a lot of other activists, allies, and other organizations. And so it was a long haul push. We came up against a lot of resistance, of course, and with the change of the law in Georgia, in which they doubled down on the removal of any of these Confederate monuments, as they also put protections on other statutes to even protect human rights leaders, statues of human rights leaders like Dr. King and others. It really put a halt to the work, because we had a short window before we knew that legislation was going to pass, and once it did, it really put a halt to the work, and things slowed down. But then with the uprising that took place with the Black Lives Matters movement, with the killing of innocent Black men and women, and what we saw in the rebellion of the summer of 2020, we got a new surge of energy and a push that allowed us to take down the monument, which was, again, the eve of Juneteenth. I don't know if you know the story, but I'll let Paul share some more about that.
Yeah,
eve
please.
Of Juneteenth in 2020.
So what we realized at that night, which was a celebration to bring that obelisk down, Fanta, we were talking about the cannon, which is only a few feet away, about why those two objects needed to be removed at the same time. But the focus was first on the obelisk, and then we spent the next year working on what we called the genocide cannon. And that cannon was placed in 1906, 2 years before the obelisk, by the same group, the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And its purpose was to memorialize the 1836, what they called Indian War, which was part of the genocidal process of white settlers driving the Mvskoke Nation out of Georgia. So in a similar way, it didn't take as long, and using the momentum to take down the monument transferred to the work on the cannon, and we were successful last October in removing that.
So you kind of touched on the history of the cannon there. What is the location of where the cannon was? What is it like? Is it a city park, or could you kind of talk about the physical location of it?
Yeah, Jared, it's actually downtown Decatur and what's known as the Square, right by the courthouse. And also situated right in front of, which is now the DeKalb County History Center, and formerly was the courthouse there, and that location has moved, but basically in the seat of power, right? Which we know that statues like the Lost Cause Confederate Monument and a cannon are intentionally placed in those kinds of places, right? Which people are going to see in large numbers, also to remind those individuals in which those weapons of war, such as the cannon or that Lost Cause Confederate Monument, was erected to celebrate, again, the oppression of my ancestors, to remind people, quote unquote, of their place, right? It's just another way to mentally oppress individuals. So the individuals who erected the UDC, they were very strategic in where they had it placed. We don't think it was a coincidence at all.
Right. And I just want to shout out to the audience. Anybody has a question, pop it into the chat. So with that in mind, the public artworks, could you talk a little bit about, what's the space like? What are you guys looking for from an Indigenous artist to fill that space? And I should mention too, before I forget, if you're an Indigenous artist and you're watching this program and you want to try to apply to do a work in this space, there's a link in the description of this video for the Art for the People website where they're taking submissions on there. There's an email on that website where you can submit to try to get your work exhibited here. But what are you guys looking for specifically in the artists and the work?
I want to mention one other thing, Jared, that I think it's really important. That's the focus of Decolonized Decatur's work, which is the connection between the Indigenous and the African, the connection in our stories based on what was done to our ancestors that brought us to this point where we are today. And also what also used to take place in the square, which is the KKK rallying in that square right now, right? That's situated now where that Lost Cause Confederate Monument was and where the cannon once was. And I think that really speaks to the story of oppression and also what this country was about and what they uplifted, that the KKK could freely rally in the square. So with the artists that would receive this commission, it's important that the work of art that they erect also recognizes the connection between the African and indigenous story with stolen land coming from the indigenous, but also as my ancestors being stolen people of African descent being forcibly made to come to this country to develop what is known as the plantation economy, which brought wealth to many families. And so as we look at this space now, it's not quite large. So ideally, it would be something like a statue that would go in that space because it's quite open where it's at. Mm-hmm. And in terms of any specifics for the vision, we've left that open. We would just want to have a conversation with our artists. We're just going to cast a large net for what the vision is and let them fill in the blanks.
Okay, great. And again, we've got some comments here. I'm just going to read some of the comments. This is from T.Y. Prohl. He's a regular commenter on our channel. Mvskoke sculptor Paul Moore should do it for free as a penance for that expletive land run abomination he made in OKC. Thanks for that comment, Paul, or T.Y. Prohl. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Paul Moore, the Mvskoke sculptor. He was involved in a project in OKC that was celebrating the land run. And I believe now that there's been a push to have a monument across the street from that monument that's going to try to tell the native side of that story. So that's an ongoing problem with the sculpting of history by the powers that people that be to try to distort things. But with that being said, again, if you're an artist, you're watching this program, you want to apply for this, how much is the commission, or is it going to be based on the work? How is that going to work from you guys' standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can tell you to date, we've raised approximately $14,000 in just 2 months. And we've also applied for a grant that would be, if we got that, another $25,000. So we're thinking it's going to be fairly sizable once we're done with our fundraising. Awesome.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on the program for sure. And everybody out there in Oklahoma, you guys stay safe with the weather the way that it is. One of the interesting things that I think about this whole project that you guys have done, and I guess I should mention, is this the only monument that you guys have taken down, or is this like a succession of things? Like, what other projects have you done?
So this is the first project, which is what Sonia said, that went up in response to the Lost Cause Confederate Monument that I spoke about, that 30-foot obelisk that celebrated the Confederacy or the Confederate soldiers in that war. So what Sonia said, and it actually did not go up in that same location that the Confederate Monument came down, but we actually placed it within the Beacon Hill community, which we believe is sacred land. Beacon Hill community was started by freed African slaves after the Civil War. And the Beacon Hill community also experienced dispossession of land, as that land was stolen from them. Toxic waste was placed on that land where Black children have played, and communities were established and torn apart, and families torn apart. So we placed intentionally what Sonia said in a certain lot of land that's also where segregated elementary and high school, Black high school, used to be. And so in talking about where this second art installation would go in response to our removal of the cannon, it may not necessarily go right in the place of the cannon. Mm-hmm. We'll be very intentional and thoughtful about where we place it, because that's also part of our storytelling. The land is very much connected to our ancestors, and how we tell the story and what we erect next will be our decision.
In the process of looking for the indigenous artists to fill this slot, or multiple slots over time, have you guys reached out to tribal governments? And if you have, what's the response been from tribal groups when you contact them?
Yeah, the Mvskoke government was the first group that we had a successful connection with, and I'll let Paul say more about that.
Well, one person who's been instrumental in this work is a Mvskoke elder who lives in Georgia and relates to part of the nation that lives or is based in southern Alabama. That's who he relates to. His name is John Winterhawk, and he made compelling testimony to the Decatur City Commission the night that high school seniors, presented a resolution for removal, and he gave testimony, gave comment. So we've been guided locally by people like him, and we're really just getting started speaking with you, and really appreciative of this connection, and we want it to grow. This is not just about finding an artist. We want to have a conversation, a dialogue. We had a meeting this week of our reparations committee. We're really using Art for the People as a way to talk about all this history and how relevant it still is, because colonization and dispossession never stopped. It's still going on today.
Absolutely.
It's just important, Jared, that we can tell our story, Native people and African people. So even as I think about the name of the canon, which we renamed the Genocide Canon, named it intentionally again for what it is, but it was put in place to celebrate the quote-unquote Indian Wars of 1836, when really it was Native people that were warred upon. But again, we have to be the ones who are telling that story, right? And telling it in the way that we know to be true. And so as we invite whoever that artist is into this work with us who received the commission, when I say we decide where that land is, that the art will be placed, that's got to be a part of a conversation we have jointly, Native and African people together, because this is our story.
Right. We've had a couple of comments here. I just wanted to mention one from John Howard. He says, "Everyone watching, please like this live feed." So thanks, John, for posting that, and go ahead and like it. You know, we're not a monetized channel or anything like that, but it will help push everybody to get this video suggested to you. And then you guys, you might mention a little bit about the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights and the committee itself too. Who's on the committee? You know, like how did that organization get formed and started?
Yeah, we started. Thank you for that question, Jared. In 2015, and again, we haven't even been around that long. 2015, barely 7 years. But it was just a small group of concerned Black parents who were concerned about their children's education, because they didn't think they were receiving an equitable education in a community that's been gentrified, that experienced redlining, again, the dispossession of land as Black families have been pushed out. So now it's a largely white community, and a largely affluent white community. And their children were not only not getting an equitable education, but their children being disproportionately disciplined as well. And so these parents came together to deal with those issues in education. And from there it grew, because we know as we talk about colonization, that impact doesn't happen in just one segment of our life or society. So then there's the issue within criminal justice and the issue with housing. So the organization grew from looking at all these issues of inequity and became the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights when we could not establish ourselves as an NAACP chapter, which we attempted to do. So we established ourselves under our own name.
I see. We've had another comment here from T.Y. Prohl, and I just wanted to mention it to you because what he says is, or they say, I don't know who it is, but they say, help us to get the Tulsa Association of Pioneers Klan Trophy Monument in Tulsa's Owen Park removed. So if you guys are interested in that, and T.Y. Prohl, if you want to, send me some contact information through YouTube, and I can pass it on and see if the Decolonized Decatur is interested in trying to organize or help with you guys if you guys are going to have a march or something like that, and let us know, obviously. So it's very interesting that we're seeing all this stuff happen, you know. At the same time, I know you're mentioning the obelisk and those pushes. We're seeing the same type of things happening in Oklahoma with the trying to limit what from Native American history in the state it can even be taught in schools through legislation and things. It's kind of disturbing things are happening. But with the McGirt decision, hopefully, and this is just me spitballing, but I'd like to see the tribes' involvement in the public education system increased because of the expanded reservation jurisdiction, or the affirmation of the reservation jurisdiction. So we'll see what can happen with there as far as schools or tribes funding schools themselves and things like that. And that way maybe we can get around some of the state prohibitions of what's taught and how it's taught. But thanks again for coming on the program, you guys. We are at about 16 minutes here. So if you got any more questions, everybody out in the chat, for the individuals here or myself, just pop them into the chat. Is there any aspect of this that you guys think is important to talk about that we haven't talked about?
I feel like there's so much more we could say, Jared. I know I have a couple more comments, but I'm going to let Paul speak for a moment.
Sure.
Because I saw there's something that was like burning for him to share.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the school curriculum issue, because we're involved in a coalition here called K through 16 Teach Truth. And one way or the other, whatever these state governments try to do, we are going to get the truth out to our young people. And one of the most powerful events that we had with the Canon was a teach-in where local teachers and historians conducted a public classroom right there at the Canon, educating people about an object that really had been hidden in plain sight for more than 100 years, 115 years. So this issue of the story of this country as a settler colony and what really happened has to be told. Mm-hmm. And as Fanta said, this indigenous African connection is at the root of the violence that happened, that started this country, that we still see today. That violence and that colonization continues, and we have to address it.
And this is how, Jared, we became the Decolonize Decatur Committee, because at one point we were the Confederate Monument Removal Committee, and that was so limited and so short-sighted. One of the things that we know is that colonization is ongoing, and we're seeing the attack on education, which is just another example of that. And so we learned that our success in the work that we have done with removing these statues has come from the community education we've done, right, to decolonize mindsets, to then do the further work of decolonizing our community. But it starts with that, decolonizing the mindset. So that was largely why we changed our name to what we did. And so now we're working throughout the community to make change wherever we can, in education or otherwise.
Well, I think it's great work, and I also want to personally thank you guys for all the work that you're doing. It has a lot of impact for natives down here, to see that there are organizations and groups of people that care about Native Americans, that they are not a member of a tribe or anything like that. They just have a relational history, and also they see an injustice and they're trying to fix it. So it's really great to see that. We've had another comment here. Let me take a look. John Howard says, who should decide what truth is taught to our children on the Oklahoma reservations? And that's a, well, hold on, let me pop my time warning popped up. Whoa, sorry guys, some technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, we're back. That's a question that's out there, you know, that because of the Supreme Court ruling, we've really seen a change in the perception of how things are done, because now the tribes have to be considered in a lot of things that they weren't even considered in before in Oklahoma. And so that's the thing is, I don't know, one of the things we've tried to do, and I was talking to Paul before we started the program, you know, we had a television program for many years, and one of the things we tried to highlight, apart from what actual Mvskoke citizens look like today and what they do, is how much money the tribal governments put into the communities here by paving roads and donating to local school programs and all types of things. And part of that is because of how the casino revenues for each tribe have to be dispersed into the community, whether if they don't do, which they don't do a lot in Oklahoma, is the per capita distribution. They have to do public works and things like that. So there are a lot of citizens of Oklahoma who maybe they aren't Native American. They don't know anything really about the history other than what they've been taught in school, which is not very much. But they're benefiting from all of these things that the tribe does, and they don't really know about it because it's not something that's publicized a lot. So when we started doing our television program years ago and our newspaper, that's one of the things, is to highlight those things, to say, hey, you know, the tribe built this town's water tower and so on and so forth, to try to get that out there, so that, because now you see a lot of the narrative of that the McGirt decision is going to cause chaos and all that stuff, when in reality there's not really that much that has changed, and all of the problems could easily be worked out over time. So, but I do appreciate you guys coming on the program, and we are at 22 minutes. Is there anything else that maybe we haven't mentioned that you guys think is important about this project?
I just want to stress for any professional artists who are interested in this project to please go to beaconhillblackalliance.org and click on Art for the People. And you can learn more about Beacon Hill Black Alliance and learn more about Art for the People. And you'll also see my contact information, which is transformation88.3@gmail. And you can email me if you're interested in this project. Again, transformation88.3@gmail.
Yeah. And for the audience also, that link is in the description of this video. So just scroll on down there and you'll go straight to the website too. How about you, Paul? Do you have anything else?
One thing I wanted to stress about Beacon Hill being a Black-led organization is that we believe that those most affected must lead. And that's the conversation that we want to have, where we center these experiences of people who have experienced the oppression in this country, that they have the wisdom and they have the lessons that we need that can free all of us. And it's going back to these stories, the original history, that can help us figure out a way forward, really to save the planet, because we are so, the rupture in the relationship with Mother Earth, and all that we need to learn from indigenous people about how to have the right relationship with Mother Earth. If we don't make some drastic changes soon, we're in crisis right now.
Right. And I would also like to mention too, you know, we were talking about the education aspects. The tribe here has an education department, and we have a language department and stuff, and they regularly travel to schools and things in Oklahoma to give educational talks and things, just like what you guys were talking about with the monument. So I know you guys are in contact with the tribal government here about the art project, but that's also something too. You could say, hey, you know, could you guys give me the contact for the education department and everything? Because they're all constantly doing all types of things like grant work and constructing syllabus or education syllabuses and things like that. So it might be a good resource for you guys to reach out to. T.Y. Pearl says, reach out to the Center for Public Secrets in Tulsa about this. Public Secrets, is that right, T.Y. Pearl? I don't know if that's a typo but I haven't heard of that one. But that's he's sending that out to you guys. Let me go through the comments here because we're about at our wrap time. John Howard says, Mado for bringing awareness to this canon and monuments in Decatur. Enoch Kelly Haney is an artist who may consider creating a design. So there's another name drop. And I would also say, you know, T.Y. Pearl says, also reach out to the Greater Tulsa Area Indian Affairs Committee. Absolutely. That would be a good contact for you guys. There's an artist that's based in I think he's still based in downtown Tulsa on his resident artist status, which is what's his name? Gattaca Starfields. is down there. He is in, I can't remember the name of the gallery in downtown Tulsa. I think he's still down there. So he would be a good person to contact. I don't think I don't know if he does sculptures. He's a mural guy. But if you guys get to a situation where you haven't had any submissions or anything, like shoot me an email. I'll try to give you some more contact information. And then also, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, don't be afraid to subscribe to our channel. And you can also go back, and we have on our channel a playlist that is called From the Vault, that is a lot of documentary style programs that have been done all through the years from the 70s on up until now. We also have on there documentaries that we've found about specific Creek and Native American artists. Sometimes they're Cherokee. You guys could also go through there and see if you could find some of those guys that are on there. There's 2 or 3 of them. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap today. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it again, and I hope you guys have more success in your struggles, and contact me if anything further happens. And then everybody in the chat, thanks for tuning in today. I don't know when our next live stream or next live wire is going to be. I've got a few things up in the air that I'm trying to schedule, and we were going to do a live wire on the impeachment, but it looks like, if you haven't seen any of our previous coverage, it looks like former Representative Travis Scott there have been criminal charges finally filed on him, so we're going to be following that when the court case comes up. We don't have a court date yet on it. But thanks so much, guys, and that's going to be it, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Jared.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Jared.
Jared Moore from Mvskoke Vision, sharing some information on folks in Decatur, Georgia, working on removing some monuments there. Okay, we've got a few announcements here real quick, and we'll whip through them. First of all, the big one, Family Fun, June 23rd through the 26th. The Mvskoke Nation Festival will be returning. There is going to be a festival this year. That's the 23rd through the 26th. We'll get you as much information on that as possible as it becomes available. Of course, the spring celebration is going on. Live events and video virtual material at, let's see, where are we going here? The Mvskoke Festival. Let's see here. It doesn't give a location, but it's usually on the lawn out by the mound. And the Mvskoke Tribal Child and Youth Coalition is still looking for volunteers to assist with that activity. You might want to get a hold of the folks at the where am I here? Let's see, gosh, great things on finding t-shirts and things. Anyway, let's get online, forums.office.com, and see what you got there. All right, there is a wild onion dinner this weekend, March the 19th, Tulsa Indian United Methodist Church. That's 1911 North College in Tulsa. To-go orders only. And Big Caseta, UMC in Morris, Oklahoma, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So this weekend is a chance for folks to get involved with getting wild onion dinners. Okay, let's see, where are we here? Now we got time to get out of here. We want to thank you for listening in and being with us today. We'll be back again next week, and hopefully we're going to get some more information on the festival pretty soon. In the meantime, Wild Onion Dinners, Tulsa Indian Methodist in Tulsa, and Big Caseta in Morris. So both of them are good. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But